Hi, good morning. Coach Crazy Cat live with you from the garden at the Barnfest. And we had rain yesterday. It's a glorious morning. I hope it's beautiful wherever you are. Take a minute just to step outside and breathe in that glorious air and praise the Father who gave us all of this, spoke it all into existence. Isn't that just amazing? Oh my goodness. I remember back when I used to be just stuck in the business of busyness and not focused on what's really important, and that this world's going to pass away and we've got an amazing future with an awesome Father if we will trust him. Actually, let me make sure my mic is on. So and give honor and glory to him, because he is absolutely amazing. I hope it's on. Just see. Sorry about that. I totally forgot. It just sounds a lot better out here in the garden. If there we go. All right, it's on. Yay! Hopefully you can hear a little better. So anyway, just glorifying God and so excited for everything that he created and for the amazing future. I think back to the way I was 5 years ago, and I would be in such a state of fear and so distraught if I thought that this is all that there was. And I can't even imagine it. So I feel so sorry for people who don't have a relationship with the Father, and I'd love to get you information. I definitely don't know everything. I'm a simple girl. I just like to read this amazing book. And all I could tell you is it's absolutely changed my life in more ways than I can even begin to count. And even on days where I beat myself up, because I do tend to do that, I can still just take a breath and realize that I'm a child of God. I remember the saints beforehand, right? Through faith, Abraham. Job went through some pretty horrible things, but look what happened to him in the end. And totally restored. John, they tried to tar and feather him, and God was like, nope, your time's not up yet. You're going to live through this one. Paul imprisoned how many times? Daniel closed the mouth of the lions. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They probably thought they were going out of this world and walked up to that fiery furnace, and Jesus danced with them in it. It's just amazing to me how awesome our God is. A God who can speak all of this in existence is bigger than all this junk that we have going on around us. So just spend more time in the Word and in prayer, and try to the extent possible to spend less time on negative things. Don't engage in negativity on Facebook. Some people are like, I'm off of Facebook because it's so negative. And I'm like, well, it doesn't have to be. I just don't respond when, or this is what I've done. I don't mean this judgmentally at all. I'm sorry if it comes across that way, but if somebody says something negative, I don't respond. And if you don't respond to negative, you see less of it. Just go and respond to positive. Find positive people and reshare their stuff. And when you do that, you'll open up your page and all of a sudden it's all positive. It's just like planting seeds. Whatever you spend your time and energy and water and sunshine on, that's what's going to grow. So plant the seed you want to see again, is what I have to say. All right, so we're on the reading plan, and we're going to get through the book of Ruth this morning, God willing. So 2 days ago, we covered Judges, the end of Judges, and that is a really hard section of verses, just really hard. It shows the worst of mankind and where we end up when we don't have the Father and an ethical system or an ethical standard in our life. People were treating each other really horribly beyond all measure. There was just every kind of evil done, people dying. It was just awful. And so now we're going to turn to the book of Ruth, which is just a story of mercy and grace and love in the midst of Judges. And we know that it took place in Judges because I'm going to skip to the end of Ruth. Just to tell you the story. So she's the great grandma of David, of King David. Okay, so Ruth is a Moabite. She's a Gentile. She's not Jewish, but she's grafted into the Jewish people, and she ends up becoming the great grandma of David. She's one of 4 women who are listed in the genealogy of David, and 3 of them are not Jewish. So it's showing that Gentiles can be grafted in as well. Women can be saved just the same as men. And it's absolutely incredible. I just love the message of Ruth. But anyway, so Naomi took the child. So there was a son born to Naomi. So Naomi is the mother-in-law of Ruth. But Ruth actually bore the child, and we'll get into that in a minute, how Ruth can still be the mother, the maternal mother, while Naomi is listed as the mom. They called his name Obed, and he was the father of Jesse, the father of David. So Ruth is going to marry Boaz. Boaz is going to have Obed, Obed Jesse, and Jesse David. And David, obviously, we all know who King David is, and he is in the lineage of Jesus. Now, what you may not know is that Obed is actually of the line of Rahab. So I'm going to go to Matthew chapter 1, which is where I always go for the genealogy of Jesus, or the Messiah, Yeshua Messiah. It's just an awesome place to go. So you have the book of the genealogy of Yeshua Messiah, son of David, son of Abraham. Abraham brought forth Isaac. So you have Abraham, Isaac. Isaac brought forth Jacob. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Jacob brought forth Judah. So remember, Jesus comes out of the line of Judah. We had some issues with Reuben, Simeon, and Levi is the priests. So Judah's his fourth, was Isaac's fourth, but yet he was he's the line from which Jesus will come. Yehuda, and Yehuda brought forth Peretz and Zerah by Tamar. So Tamar is the first woman listed in the genealogy of Jesus, and she is a Jew-ish lady, but she had lost her first two husbands, the sons of Judah. They died, and Judah didn't want to give her his fourth son, or third son, even though he was supposed to. And so she ends up tricking Judah into sleeping with her and brought forth children. And then he ultimately ended up marrying her because she brought forth Peretz and Zerah. So it's interesting that you can sin but still be in the line of Jesus if you have faith. And Peretz brought forth Hetzron, and Hetzron brought forth Ram, and Ram brought forth Aminadab, and Aminadab brought forth Nahshon, and Nahshon brought forth Salmon, and Salmon brought forth Boaz by Rahab. So Rahab's the second woman in the lineage of Jesus. And Rahab, as you may recall, was a prostitute, non-Jewish lady. She actually lived in the town Jericho and went out on a limb and risked her and her family's life to help the spies. And as a result was saved and ended up being brought into Israel and marries Salmon. And Salmon brought forth Boaz. So Boaz is the Boaz who marries Ruth, and he treats her very kindly. And maybe that's because his mom was a non-Jewish lady as well. Maybe he was more open to that. Maybe it was because he realized that it's all about the heart and faith anyway. And obviously Boaz is a very faithful man. But we know that it had to be during the time of Judges because Rahab was in Jericho, right? And that's when Joshua was still alive. So Rahab gets brought in. How long it takes for her to get married and have children, we don't exactly know. But sometime during that time frame, she had Boaz, right? And now Boaz is marrying Ruth. So during this time of Judges, when we have all of this discontent and this unhappiness and just evilness, right? Everybody living by what he thought was right in his own eyes. You've got this beautiful story of a remnant with the marriage of the Jewish and the non-Jewish. So the picture of being grafted in, as Jesus does for all of us Gentiles. And it's absolutely incredible. I just love this story, and I can't say enough positive things about it. So with that, let's get started because I've yammered on enough. So the book of Ruth. And it came to be in the days when the rulers ruled, there was it says right here, the rulers ruled. So ruler and judge, that's the same. We've interpreted it judge in English, but rulers is really more the way it would have sounded in Hebrew. So the rulers ruled. So it was the time of Judges. There was a scarcity of food in the land, which obviously they had famines brought on by God because he was like, you guys are sinning. And there was a man from Bethlehem, which is in Judah. And he went to sojourn in the fields of Moab, he and his wife and his two sons. So he leaves Judah and he goes to Moab, which God had not told him to do this. He went on his own accord because he was like, well, let's go somewhere else, which is interesting because the Moabites weren't supposed to marry with the Moabites. And an exception is going to be made here for Ruth, which is just really cool. The name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife was Naomi. So Elimelech and Naomi take off with their two sons, Mahlon and Chilion, Ephrathites of Bethlehem, Judah. So they're of Judah, And they went to the fields of Moab and came to be there. And Elimelech, husband of Naomi, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. And they took wives of the women of Moab. The one was Orpah, and the other was Ruth. And they dwelt there 10 years. So they're 10 years in the land of Moab. And Mahlon and Chilion died also, both of them. So the woman was bereaved of her 2 sons and of her husband. So here she is. She's left with 2 daughters-in-law. 3 women at this time was very dangerous. You didn't have anybody to protect you. You would have to, she had land back in Judah because it was left to her family, but she has no way to work it because she only has women. And I don't mean that derogatorily, but in this time, men were kind of in charge, and things were not, you were living out on the field, you were living in tents, and it could be pretty dangerous. So anyway, so she doesn't have much to look forward to at this moment. So she rises up with her daughters-in-law and returns from the fields of Moab, for she had heard in the fields of Moab that Jehovah had visited his people and giving them bread. So she hears while she's out getting food, that she hears that Jehovah had visited his people and that now the famine's gone. So she left the place where she was and her daughters-in-law with her, and they went on their way to return to the land of Yehudah. And Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go and return each to her mother's house. Jehovah show loving commitment to you as you have shown to the dead and to me. Jehovah grant that you find rest, each in the house of her husband." And she kissed them, and they lifted up their voices and they wept. And they said to her, "No, we shall go back with you to your people." But Naomi said, "Go back, my daughters. Why go with me? Have I still sons in my womb that they would become your husbands? Go back, my daughters. Go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. And if I should say I have expectancy, even if I should bear a husband tonight and should also bear sons, would you wait for them till they are grown? Would you shut yourselves up not to have a husband? No, my daughters, for it is much more bitter for me than for you, because the hand of Jehovah has gone out against me." And they lifted up their voices and wept again, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. So you got these 2 ladies who are of Moab with Naomi, no men to help them, and widows, are just really sad in this time, which is why God was telling them to take care of the poor and the widows. And she says, "Why don't you go back to your people? You're probably better off. You're young. You can remarry. You've still got a full life ahead of you. Even if I'm old, so I'm unlikely to get married or have babies. But even if right now at this moment I was married and had a baby, are you going to wait 20 years until they're old enough? And then what happens with you? You'll be too old to bear children. So what's the point? Go back and get married." And so Orpah goes back. She's like, "Yeah, I'm out of here, man. See ya." But Ruth says, "Do not urge me to leave you or to go back from following you, for wherever you go, I go, and wherever you stop over, I stop over. Your people is my people, and your Elohim is my Elohim. Where you die, I die, and there I shall be buried. So do to me, and more also, for death itself parts you and me." And I just love these verses. So it's showing Ruth's faithfulness, not only to her mother-in-law, but also to the Elohim, the God of Israel that she had heard about, because of Naomi introducing her to the one true God. So Naomi's faith had stayed, obviously, and she had introduced both of her daughters-in-law to Elohim, and Ruth came to know him through faith, and she didn't want to lose that relationship. She's like, "I'm going with you because that's the only place I'm going to get exposure to this amazing God. And also, I'm going to stick with you because it's the right thing to do, I guess." It doesn't really say that, but that's kind of what I understand. And when she saw she was strengthening herself to go with her, she ceased to speak to her. And both of them went, and they came to Bethlehem. And it came to be, when they came to Bethlehem, that all the city was moved because of them. And they said, "Is this Naomi?" So there's the town's in a stir. They're like, "Naomi's back. Oh my goodness." And she said to them, "Do not call me Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt bitterly with me." So she's kind of in this period of anger and frustration. And she's like, "Why has my husband and my 2 sons died? And here I am back, and now I've got this land, nobody to work it. It's kind of a bad situation, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I went outfilled, and Jehovah has brought me back empty. Why do you call me Naomi, since Jehovah has witnessed against me, and the Almighty has done evil to me?" So I do this a lot, right? Where something bad will happen. For me, usually it's getting interrupted multiple times. And I can just get in a plain old state of why gods. That's what I call it, when I'm like, "Why, God? Why does everything have to be so difficult? I'm trying to do what you want me to do. Why is it so hard?" And really, he knows everything. right? He knows what I'm going to do in the future. He knows where we're going to be. He's got everything already planned out. Everything for here is a lesson. It's about staying in a place of joy and peace no matter what's going on around you. Do you know what I mean? So it's easy to be in joy and peace right now at this moment. I'm reading the most amazing book ever written, sitting in a garden, watching my cats play, drinking a coffee. It's pretty amazing. But can I be that way when things get bad, when there is no food, when there is no rain, when there is no famine? Can you still give glory to God then? And I really am working with myself on that every day, to try to just remove that little evil, nasty person inside of me who just wants to complain about everything and go into the why gods immediately. When, if you look at the story of Job, Job went through this great trial, but then look at the what witness he has had for the world. Like, everybody still says the patience of Job. And regardless of whether you read the Bible or not, you know what that means. Because Job is known for having great patience. His entire family was wiped out. His house was wiped out. Everything was wiped out. And what did he do? He trusted God. He wouldn't turn on God. So are we going to do that? I ask myself this question all the time. So I need to stay in a space of joy. I want to be more like Ruth. Where you die, I die. There I will be buried. Jehovah do to me, and more for my death, if death parts you and me. I want to just really trust God, no matter where He takes you, no matter what situation He puts you in. Know that the learning that you're going to gain is worth it all, and you're going to carry that learning into the kingdom. Instead of being like Naomi and going into a state of bitterness and having a real serious pout session, because you feel like your life has been turned upside down. So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, who returned from the fields of Moab, and they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of barley harvest. So they're coming to Bethlehem at the beginning of the harvest, which is important because they will have a food source, because there are rules in Israel about not taking everything out of your field. So you leave the corners and the gleanings. So if you imagine, because everything was done manually, the workers would go through and they would pick the grain. Some things are going to fall. God's like, don't go and pick up every last piece of it. Leave some, right, for the poor and for the elderly, for the widow, and leave the corners. So they leave the corners. They leave these gleanings so that the poor and the widows and other people who don't have means to take care of themselves can still eat. And they also don't have to be completely disrespected or feel bad about it, because they can go out and still work for their food. So even though they didn't plant the harvest and they didn't, tend to it, they can still come out and pick, and they can still eat. So they're picking their food. So God says in the Bible, right, he has several verses related to this, but you've got the lily of the valley. So God takes care of the lily of the valley, and it doesn't toil or struggle, but are we not better than one of these? You got the raven, which doesn't have to worry about it. Food just shows up. God's taking care of it. But you also have the story of the ant, right? The ant works really hard to have his food. And it says in the New Testament, if you don't eat, if you don't work, you don't have food. So the people who are capable and able of working should be working, but we should also make opportunity for them to be able to work in a way that's respectful and where they can glean their own food and feed their own family. It's beautiful the way it was set up. All right, chapter 2. And Naomi had a relative on her husband's side, a man of great wealth, of the clan of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. We just heard about Boaz, right? His mama was Rahab, the harlot from Jericho. And he is obviously a man of faith, of the tribe of Judah, and David's going to come out of his line. He's an amazing man. But he's a man of great wealth, and he has fields, and he's in Naomi's family, which is important. And Ruth, the Moabitess, said to Naomi, please let me go to the field and glean heads of grain after him whose eyes I find favor. And she said, go, my daughter. So Ruth is asking to go out and do this practice, which was common in Israel, where you could glean in the field and no one would say anything to you. She and Naomi didn't have another way to eat, and Ruth was quite happy to go out and work for their food. So she left and went out and gleaned in the field after the reapers, and it turned out she came to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, the nearer relative of Elimelech. And see, Boaz had come from Bethlehem and said to the reapers, Jehovah be with you. And they answered him, Jehovah bless you. You can see here how kind he is to the people that work in his field. Just because they're of a different social status doesn't mean he treats so many differently. They're all children of God, and we all have a job in this world, so it doesn't matter where it is, great or small. We treat each other with mutual respect. The toe on your body is just as important as the head. The head's not going to be real happy without the big toe. And Boaz said to his servant who was appointed over the reapers, whose young woman is this? So the servant appointed over the reapers and said, it is the young Moabite woman who came back with Naomi from the fields of Moab. And she said, please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the reapers. And she came and has remained from morning until now. She sat a little in the house. So this is just an absolute beautiful story that reminds me how our Father knows every single thing that's going to happen with us, and that he's worked it all out to our good. So sometimes it may be things that we don't think is good for us, but God knows that it is. And like, what are the odds? You can believe in luck if you want to, but I think it's a whole lot easier to believe, takes less faith to believe that God worked all of this out. You've got Ruth needs to go out and glean in a field. She ends up in Boaz's field, and Boaz just happened to be returning from town and sees Ruth. What are the odds? I mean, God's so awesome. But she had worked, so the servant says she worked really hard and she just sat down just a few minutes ago. Verse 8, and Boaz said to Ruth, you have heard, have you not, my daughter? Do not go to glean in another field, nor go from here, but stay close to my women. Let your eyes be on the field which they reap, and you shall go after them. Have I not commanded the young men not to touch you? And when you are thirsty, go to all the vessels and drink from what the young men have drawn. And she fell on her face, bowed down to the ground, and said to him, why have I found favor in your eyes, that you should take notice of me, seeing I am a foreigner? And Boaz answered and said to her, I have been told all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, and how you have left your father and your mother and the land of your birth, and have come to a people whom you did not know before. Jehovah repay your work, and your reward is complete from Jehovah Elohim of Yisrael, under whose wings you have come to seek refuge. And I love this. Oh my goodness, I'm going to cry. It's just so beautiful, and it's such a picture of our Yeshua Messiah. If you think of Boaz as a picture of God, of Jesus, and Ruth, I think of myself as Ruth, and any of us are. We're just this person trying to do the best we can. But if we love God and we put him first, we love God and we love others, and we treat people with kindness, he sees it. He sees all of our work, and he pulls us in under his wings, and he takes care of us. And it's just such a beautiful, beautiful picture, and such a beautiful story. And here he is. He's putting her. He told everybody, you better not touch her, and she can drink from the water just like everyone else. It's unmerited favor. There was nothing Ruth could do to repay Boaz for what he's done, just like there's nothing that we could ever do to repay Jehovah, Yeshua Messiah, for what he's done for us. But we can do what he's told us to do, which is to trust him and love him first, and to love others second. So verse 13, and she said, let me find favor in your eyes, my master, because you have comforted me and have spoken to the heart of your female servant, though I am not like any of your female servants. And Boaz said to her, come here at mealtime, then you shall eat of the bread and dip your piece of bread in the vinegar. And she sat beside the reapers, and he passed roasted grain to her, and she ate and was satisfied and had leftover. And she rose up to glean, and Boaz commanded his young men, saying, let her glean among the sheaves, and do not embarrass her. Rather, draw out from the bundles for her, and leave it for her to glean, and do not restrain her. And she gleaned in the field until the evening, and beat out that which she gleaned, and it was an ephah of barley. And she took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned, and she brought out and gave to her what she had left over after she was satisfied. Then her mother-in-law asked her, where have you gleaned today, and where do you work? Blessed be the one who took notice of you. And she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked, the name of the man I worked today with is Boaz. And Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, blessed be he of Jehovah, who has not forsaken his loving commitment to the living and the dead. And Naomi said to her, the man is a relative to ours, one of our redeemers. So I'll pause here, and this redeemer goes back to the law that was given in Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And this is one of the beautiful things that God established, so that no portion of Israel is wiped out, and so the land of each of the tribes doesn't get taken away. You still have a right to the land. And so if no male heir has been born to your women, then God will have the brother of your husband, the brother's family, will take that place. So what they will do is they will take you in as a wife, and the firstborn child then becomes the heir who gets back that land. Now, you pay some money to the widow, so she has some money to live on, and you marry her. But when she has the firstborn son, that land goes to that child as if your brother never died. Oh, it's a pretty beautiful thing, except that you'll see here that the first redeemer doesn't want to take the place, so Boaz ends up taking that place. And Naomi is like, wow, blessed is Jehovah. And we have one here who's listened to the law, and he's not going to forsake his commitment to these women who are left destitute. And Ruth the Moabitess said, he also said, stay close to my people until they have completed my harvest. And Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, it is good, my daughter, that you go out with his young women, and they do not meet you in any other field. And she stayed close by the young women of Boaz to glean until the completion of the barley harvest and the wheat harvest, but she dwelt with her mother-in-law. So Naomi's pretty smart, and you'll see this in the next chapter, because she knows that Boaz obviously has some sort of an interest in Ruth, and he is taking the place of the Redeemer, the relative Redeemer is what it's called. So he's taking that place. He's taking care of the women. He's making sure that they have plenty of food. He makes sure that she has plenty from the barley harvest. She's taken care of. She can drink water, which is just a beautiful picture also of having living water from Yeshua Messiah. He gives us all, and he's our great shepherd if we lay it over and give it to him. But anyway, so Naomi kind of sees this going on, but then she's wondering, why hasn't Moab come and asked Ruth to marry him? He's done everything else that the relative Redeemer would do. I don't understand. And we're going to find out here in this next chapter. So Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, my daughter, should I not seek rest for you so that it is well with you? When she says rest, that means marriage with Boaz, because Boaz will then take care of her, and you become a married woman. You'll have different responsibilities than those you have right now. And now is not Boaz, with whose young women you have been, our relative. See, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. So it's the end of the barley season. So they've been here they were at the beginning of the barley harvest when they came and they joined his field. She's worked the entire barley season. So imagine, like, barley harvest is probably in the springtime, and here we are in the fall, and they are taking their barley, and they go through this winnowing process, which is where you beat the barley really, really hard, and then you let the wind blow it, and you get just the grain, just the good part, and you throw away the trash part. And you shall bathe and anoint yourself and put on your garments and go down to the threshing floor. Do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. So when they do this winnowing process, it's a big kind of festival party. All of the men of the field are going to be in, and all the people of the field are going to be in with Boaz leading. He's doing the work too. It shows another part of his character. And they're out and they're beating the barley, but then he has a big meal and some wine, and everybody's celebrating because they're really happy. They got a great harvest, and they're blessing Jehovah for all that they've been given. And it shall be when he lies down. So they're going to all sleep in the same spot, because it'll be late at night, and traveling at night at this time is very dangerous. So they're all just going to stay where they are, and they'll get up and go home in the morning. And it shall be when he lies down, you shall notice the place where he lies, and go and uncover his feet, and lie down, and let him make known to you what you should do. So she uncovers his feet, which is only his feet. There's nothing else that's going on. I mean, she's a proper woman with morals. But uncovering someone's feet in that time is letting them know that you are available and willing to marry them if they are willing to take you in under their covering and be a part of their group. And she said to her, all that you say to me, I do. So this shows again that Ruth trusts Naomi, and she's like, okay, cool. And she went down to the threshing floor and did according to all that her mother-in-law commanded her. And Boaz ate and drank, and his heart was glad. And he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain. And she came softly and uncovered his feet and lay down. And it came to be at midnight. The man was startled, and he turned himself and saw a woman lying at his feet. And he said, who are you? And she answered, I am Ruth, your female servant. Now you shall spread the corner of your garment over your female servant, for you are a redeemer. And he said, blessed are you of Jehovah, my daughter, for you have shown more loving commitment at the end than at the beginning, not to go after young men, whether rich or poor. So this is a beautiful little story. She goes in, and it's very dark, obviously, in the threshing floor. She's trying to be extremely discreet and to let him know that she's available to be his wife if he is willing to take her. And he is flattered because he's an old man and she's very young. And he's saying, you could have married all kinds of people, rich or poor. You're a young lady, but you haven't gone after any of them. And you've worked very hard this entire season, and I'm just totally honored and flattered that you are interested in me. And he covers with the garment. So if you imagine she's laying at his feet and he covers with his garment, that's a symbol in this time that you're taking somebody in for your protection. You're covering them, because men at this time had very long garments that they wore. So putting somebody under the edge of the garment, nothing, bad going on, but he's just making a symbol that he's happy to take her in. And now, my daughter, do not fear. All that you say, I do. For all the people of my town know that you are a capable woman. So she obviously is honorable, and she has a really great reputation. And now it is true that I am your redeemer. However, there's a redeemer nearer than I. Stop over tonight, and in the morning it shall be that if he does redeem you, good, let him redeem. But if he is not pleased to redeem you, then I shall redeem you, as Jehovah lives. Lie down until the morning. And she lay at his feet until the morning, and she arose before one could recognize another. And he said, let it not be known that the woman came to the threshing floor. And he said, bring the shawl that is on you and hold it. And she held it, and he measured 6 measures of barley and laid it on her, and she went into the city. And when she came to her mother-in-law, she said, is that you, my daughter? And she explained to her all the man had done. And she said, he gave me these 6 measures of barley, for he said, do not go empty-handed to your mother-in-law. And she said, wait, my daughter, until you know the matter falls, for the man is not going to rest until he has completed the matter of this day. So this is really awesome. And understanding a bit of the Jewish culture at this time, he has said, I will be your redeemer. However, there's somebody who falls in line ahead of me. So you get the wife, but you also get the land. Okay. But he knows that there's somebody else who's ahead of him, and he wants to see if that guy wants her. And he says, if he's not going to take you, then I will do it. I will be happy to marry you. So she lay there until the morning. And then in the morning, he told all of his servants, he said, don't be spreading rumors. Nothing has happened. There's no need to go and tell people about this. Nothing took place. So if you don't talk about it, nobody will, tarnish her reputation or mine. And he gives her 6 measures of barley, which is a couple days worth. So when she goes home and Naomi sees the amount of barley she got, she knows that Boaz is going to act quickly, because it's not like they have enough for the whole winter, and the harvest has just ended. So they're going into winter time. So Naomi is happy because she knows that Boaz is going to get this taken care of. So Boaz went up to the gate and sat down, and see, the redeemer of whom Boaz had spoken came by, and Boaz said, turn aside, so-and-so, sit down here. And he turned aside and he sat down. So this is interesting. So Boaz is sitting in the gate. So in this time, cities were walled in because it was for protection, and the gates where everybody came and went. And so at night, everything was locked up. If you lived in the city, you were locked in. If you were outside the city, as Boaz was, out on his area, then you were locked out. But the business took place in the gate, because everybody from outside had to come to inside. So all the rulers would hang out in the gate. So that way, if you lived outside the city and you weren't supposed to be inside, you could come and do your business in the gate and not really go in and steal anything or mess with anybody, and the town was still protected. So the elders are sitting in the gate, and Boaz is sitting there, and he knows this dude, the other redeemer, and he's called so-and-so because his name is just not important. He's coming through, and Boaz says, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. Come over, let's sit down. And the guy's like, hey, how you been? So he comes and he sits down, if you can imagine these 2 guys. And then he took 10 men of the elders of the cities. He says, sit down here. So they sit down. So now this dude's like, uh-oh, now we got some serious business. I wonder what's happened, right? So imagine you go in, and one of your friends is like, hey, come over here. And then he calls up some witnesses to watch. You're kind of like, uh-oh. And they have 10, because 10 means judgment. The judgment is final. So sit down here. So they sat down, and he said to the redeemer, Naomi, who has come back from the fields of Moab, sold the piece of land which belonged to our brother Elimelech. And I thought that I should disclose it to you, saying, buy back in the presence of the inhabitants and the elders of my people. If you do not redeem it, if you do redeem it, redeem it. But if you do not redeem it, inform me, so I know, for there is no one but you to redeem it, and I am next after you. And he said, I redeem it. So this is pretty awesome. Boaz is really wise. So he has brought this guy, the redeemer, in front of the elders, and he's going to force him to make a decision. So the law required that the next of kin would take the women on, but it didn't require them to make a decision fast. They didn't have to make a decision immediately. So when Boaz says, hey, Naomi's back, he knows Naomi's really old, and he's probably thinking, okay, well, she's old, and she's, I'll put her in the back bedroom of the house, and I'll take care of her and feed her, but I get some land at a cheap price, and then that land's going to go back to my family when she dies. because she's not of childbearing age, is what the guy's thinking, right? He gets the land. But Boaz knows that's what he's thinking, and so the guy says, I'll take it. So he's already said in front of the elders he's going to take the land. But then Boaz says, on the day you buy the field from the hand of Naomi, you also acquire Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of the dead, to raise up the name of his dead on his inheritance. And the Redeemer said, I am not able to redeem it myself, lest I ruin my own inheritance. Redeem my right of redemption for yourself, or I'm not able to redeem it. So this is pretty awesome. Boaz is kind of, in a completely legit, legal, upfront way, backed the guy into a corner and forced him to make a decision and not to delay so that he could keep the land hostage and not do right by Ruth. It's like, you either take Ruth as a wife and you raise up a son for Naomi, or I'm going to do it. And so the guy's like, you know what? I pass. I'm out. See you later. So this was formerly done in Yisrael concerning redeeming and exchanging to confirm every word. One man took off his sandal and gave it to another, and this was a witness in Yisrael. So the Redeemer said to Boaz, buy it for yourself. So he took off his sandal. So this taking off the sandal is really neat. So if you think of it about, I'm going to give you my sandal so you can walk in my shoes, is kind of the symbol that it means. I'm not willing to do it, so here you go. Good luck to you. You can have the land and Ruth, and you take care of her and Naomi's child and all that kind of stuff. So it's official, and it's done, and you can't back off now because it's been done in front of the witnesses. And Boaz said to the elders, you are witnesses this day that I have brought all that was Elimelech's and all that was Chelon's and Mahlon's from the hand of Naomi. Bought all. And also Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of Mahlon, I have acquired as my wife to raise up the name of the dead on his inheritance, so that the name of the dead should not be cut off from among his brothers and from the gate of his place. You are witnesses today. And all the people who were at the gate and the elders said, witnesses, Jehovah, make the woman who is coming to your house as Rachel and as Leah. So it's saying, have a lot of sons. The two who built the house of Israel, and prove your worth in Ephrath, and proclaim the name in Bethlehem. And let your house be like the house of Peretz, whom Tamar bore to Yehudah, the seed which Jehovah does give you from this young woman. And Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. And he went into her, and Jehovah granted her conception, and she bore a son. And the women said to Naomi, blessed be Jehovah, who has not left you a day without a redeemer, and let his name be proclaimed in Israel. Sorry for crying. I just love this story. And he shall be to you a restorer of life and a sustainer of your old age, for your daughter-in-law, who loves you, is better to you than 7 sons. He has borne him. And Naomi took the child and laid him in her bosom and became a nurse to him. And the woman, her neighbors, gave him a name, saying, there is a son born to Naomi, and they called his name Obed, and he was the father of Jesse, the father of David. So Naomi's gone through all this stress, and she found this amazing daughter-in-law who trusted her and loved her and believes in God, who was willing to give up her life and possibly never get married again. And here God brings everything back that she wanted and more. And she ends up with an amazing husband, and she's able to give Naomi a son so that she gets back her land. And the whole thing is just so beautiful, and it's a sign of our Yeshua Messiah and everything he did for us. How we can never, there's no way I could repay any of it, ever, no matter how hard I work or what I do. And he doesn't expect us to. He knows we can't. And he just wants our love and our respect, and to do what he asks us to do. So, and to work hard like Ruth did. Be willing to do whatever it is. Go out into the field and glean, which is helping people to come to know God, because he's just so amazing. And he shall be to you a restorer of life and a sustainer of your old age. For your daughter-in-law who loves you is better to you than 7 sons, and has borne him. And Naomi took the child and laid him on her bosom and became a nurse to him. And the women, her neighbors, gave him a name, saying, there was a son born to Naomi. And they called his name Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. This is the genealogy of Peretz. Peretz brought forth Hezron. Hezron brought forth Ram. Ram brought forth Aminadab. Aminadab brought forth Nahshon. Nahshon brought forth Salmon. Salmon brought forth Boaz. Boaz brought forth Obed. And Obed brought forth Jesse. And Jesse brought forth David. Isn't that just beautiful? And such a beautiful picture of our Messiah who has redeemed us. And if there's anybody out there who doesn't know him, or you're questioning, or you're seeking, please just reach out. I'll put you on my prayer board. I'll pray with you. I'll get you in touch with people who can help. I will share Bible verses. I'll share my experience, whatever it is that can help you. Just get with God, man. I was so lost for so long, and I was so sad. I honestly was totally in the business of busyness, and I believed every lie the enemy threw at me. And I thought that money and houses and being able to go on trips and do all this stuff was going to buy me happiness, and none of it did. None of it. And I'm just so grateful that he woke me up, he broke me free, and brought me home. And I just want to help as many people as I can get to know him, because he's done so much for me. So anyway, with that, let's close in prayer. Forgot to open in prayer, sorry. Father God, I just praise you for this beautiful and incredible and amazing story of Ruth that was captured for us to know and to understand and to share, and that it's such a beautiful picture of you, Father, and what you did for us, and the great sacrifice that you took by humbling yourself and coming down here in this crazy, crazy world that can be so mean, and for just loving us and trusting the Father and loving the Father so much that you laid down your life, even though you knew it was going to be an awful situation. And I just praise you for it, Father, and I can't wait to meet you. I love you and all. Amen. All right. So enough of weepy woman here. I hope you guys have a blessed, beautiful day wherever you are. Please share with anyone this can help. And tomorrow, God willing, we'll start in Samuel. So we're going to be going into a period of reading between Samuel and Psalms and Chronicles and Kings, because this is all going to be about the kings now, the king period. So we've exited the ruler period, because that obviously didn't work out very well, and everybody kept asking for a king. So they're going to get one, which was a major insult to God, because God was their king and their redeemer, but they didn't want to hear it. So anyway, we will, God willing, start that tomorrow, and I'm super excited about what we're going to learn, and super grateful to the Verse by Verse Ministries. Their study on Ruth, from which I obtained a lot of the background and historical information, is absolutely incredible. I have a link attached, so please check that out and follow them. You can listen to it anywhere, plug it on your free app, and go to town. Anyway, have a blessed, beautiful day wherever you are. Bye now.